These are the absolute rarest things to find in Minecraft. Honestly, some of these are so rare that none of us will ever get to see them in our natural lifetimes. Starting with,
what's the biggest vein of diamonds that you've ever seen? Is it 4 diamonds in a row? Maybe 8? Well, how about 64 diamond ore blocks all generated in one lump? Yeah, no joke. The way that this happens is that if you have diamonds spawning on the chunk's edge, then by having 4 chunks line up like this, you could luck out just right to have 64 of the diamond ores put together in such a shape. I mean, this looks like one of the mega veins of iron or coal that can generate in the world. And now the only thing I can think about is going through this with a fortune pickaxe.
This desert pyramid spawned in with no TNT trap room, which sounds like a dream, but don't get your hopes up. Since when we take a look at what's actually down there, you'll notice that the easily disarmed stone pressure plate has been replaced with a pool of lava, which is a lot less safe to dig into, obviously. But even if you were to find a way down through all of that, I'll save you the frustration and just tell you that there's no chest down there at the bottom. Though if you want to trick your friend into digging to their death, this might be the perfect setup for an easy prank. The village that spawns in this seed seems to be a little worse for wear, and the reason for that might be these 3 cave spider spawners that spawn right out in the middle of the open. See, it seems that our Mesa mine shaft might have gotten a bit too close to this neighboring desert village, and when it did, it created this weird hodgepodge of string and sand. But hey, while that might look like a negative, this might be the quickest way to start trading your string for emeralds with the Fletcher villager, though the threat of danger nearby still might outweigh those early game exploits, especially at nighttime. Just as Minecraft has rare seeds to find or biomes to explore, there are plenty of rare mobs that spawn as well, and the reigning champions for those have to be these fellas, the so-called rarest things in Minecraft. So whether you find this overpowered zombie villager jockey in Java, or the panda riding husk in Bedrock, I think it's safe to say these picks are in a league of their own. But considering the luck that you need to find these, I'd say that the summon command is really our only chance to ever see them. As Minecraft gets more changes to its world generation, it's got some of us asking, where are the volcanoes? And while there don't seem to be any in the works, this unintentional seed might do the trick. Here, a ruined portal spawned right atop one of the new mountains, giving us one of those lava-filled peaks that we've been waiting for all this time. When you see this, it means that the game tried to generate a dungeon chest and a spawner in the same block, giving us a spawner that behaves like a chest. And while this one doesn't spawn pigs, we could still move items in and out of it using hoppers, for whatever that's worth. From down here, this looks a lot like a regular river, but from up top, it's a lot easier to notice what's going on. When you spawn into this seed, there's a series of 8 rivers that are all locked together like so. Add on to that the fact that there's a neighboring desert village and desert temple, and this spawn seems to have you covered and then some. But by far my favorite detail of this might just have to be that since the rivers seem to mark an X on the map, you'd figure there's some treasure nearby. And sure enough, if you go looking for it, there's even a treasure chest within spitting distance of the location, making it all come together nicely. This mushroom fields biome spawned in with only 3 blocks above the water, and with no mobs or trees in sight, which really begs the question, how small can a biome be before it's no longer considered a biome? But seeing as mycelium blocks only spawn in a mushroom fields biome, this does make the cut. And really, just imagine traveling thousands of blocks to try and find a mushroom island, only to find this instead. Ouch. Upon first glance, this Enderman might not seem that special. I mean, sure, it's holding a block, but plenty of Endermen do that. Well, the impressive factor here has to deal with exactly what the Enderman's holding. See, in the 1.16 Nether update, it was made so that Enderman could no longer pick up netherrack, likely to stop them from terraforming any kind of warped forest. But if you had one of these prior to the update where it could pick up the block, then it would still be holding it today, making this a rare creature for the collection. Ocean monuments are nothing new to see, but something like this seems a bit more peculiar. After all, the way that this generated, it seems more like a lake monument than an ocean one. Now sure, the biome is still technically labeled an ocean, but with a ring of land on all sides, it's really hard to call it one. But I will say this makes a pretty great candidate for your next guardian farm at your base. And if you ask me, that's benefit enough to toss aside the labels, just reap the rewards. In a game made of blocks, a circle really stands out, which is why this seed is such a rare find. Now, usually we'd be stuck spending the time looking at a circle guide to build one of these, but here it's already laid out for us like so, and that's a cool find for sure. So while it's not the most useful landmark in the game, it is an unusual sight worth showing off to your friends. And even if it doesn't hold a candle to Mr. Cat's circle, it's better than anything I could possibly build. Now, I get it, horses aren't exactly a preferred way to travel, but it's always nice to have a shiny set of armor, and having all 3 of them is gonna look even better. So if you're looking for all the spiffy duds for your stud, then you could always roll the dice for a situation like this. In this altar chest in the stronghold, we've got a full set of iron, gold, and diamond horse armor variants, which if you see this, maybe take a screenshot, since there's only about a 1 in 2 million chance of it ever happening. Being a little out of place can really cause for some confusion, and seeing an entire building out of place can do that, and then some. Here, a jungle temple managed to spawn right outside of its biome and out in the middle of the ocean. And And while being out at a waterfront property might seem like a dream come true, there is one key downside to the location. This being that when we check inside, there are no chests to be seen, giving this floating temple a lot more of a sinking feeling. Picture this: you and your village want to move away from mainland and find yourself some peace and quiet. And then, when you finally get there and situated, all the way out in the sea, there's yet another village within render distance. Well, that's just the case on this seed. And not only do we have neighboring villages, but neighboring islands as well. And while that might seem a little tedious to hop between the two villages, it'll make trading with the fishermen even easier. And hey, there's less room for zombies to spawn to disturb the population. That's a good thing too. Just look out for drowned tridents, and the rest should be fine.
While you might have been able to use your luck of the sea fishing rod to get a couple of enchanted books, they probably haven't looked much like this. And here we see the 0.143% chance of getting 9 enchantments on a single enchanted book. I mean, I can't even imagine going through the effort to do that in an anvil, let alone getting one from a fishing rod. And if you want to take the rarity of getting that specific book, it would be 7.04 times 10 to the negative 23rd power, which means that you would take a 7 and then put 23 zeros in front of it.
As some of you might know, the Vatican actually had a server in Minecraft for a time, which is a story for another day, but even if you didn't get the IP, this seed seems like the next best thing, because while other villager non-believers might settle for one church in their village, this town has not one, but 4 different ones to choose from. And it cracks me up that they're all on the same path as well. So while it's not as objectively helpful as getting 4 blacksmith chests, I guess if you need the brewing stands, then by all means. In every survival run, there comes a time where you've got to find the stronghold. But if you're trying to cut out all the digging that it takes to get there, this scene might be your solution. We see here that this stronghold managed to spawn right before our very eyes at surface level, giving us an easy entry. And that way our shovels stay shiny and Steve doesn't have to break a sweat. So while it might sound daunting to take on the Ender Dragon this early in the game, at least now you'll know how to find it once you're prepared. And I'm sure the Enderman will appreciate us not having to give them any trouble for the pearls. Sometimes you can hit the Minecraft seed jackpot. And call me crazy, but I think this one wins the Powerball. In this seed alone, we've got a village neighboring a woodland mansion with a ruined portal in the outskirts to boot. And folks, that's just the surface. Because if we hop underground, then we can find a mine shaft, a dungeon, and a stronghold to top it off. I mean, that's maybe 2/3 of achievements in the game covered just within the same few hundred blocks. And if you ask me, that sounds too good to be true. While beacons clearly have a lot of function as a, well, beacon, they do also give off a light source, which we can extrapolate to mean that you can use beacons exclusively as a light source inside your base. But why you would ever do this, it's beyond me. Because each one of these blocks that you place down tells the story that you killed a wither for each nether star inside, which is pretty cool, but as soon as you see a beacon chandelier like this, then it starts to feel excessive. And honestly, if you're gonna use a beacon for decoration, I'd much rather use it for colorful beacon beams, because at least then the beacon could be active instead of just passive like so. Maybe it's just me, but when I start a new world on an island in the middle of nowhere, I'll usually just restart. But this time, that'd be too hard to pass up on, since on this seed, we spawn in a giant floating piece of stone in the middle of the ocean blue. But hey, if it's not for you, then at least the 3 trees on this island will offer just enough wood for a boat to sail away. Though, if you do that, maybe bring one of the wolves with you. It's the least you can do.
In Bedrock Edition only, you have a small chance of finding a baby squid, which itself is rare because you're not able to actually breed the squids. There's nothing they eat. And considering the fact that the squids can grow up to be regular squids too, that means that you have an even smaller chance of finding those baby squids. They're rare, and you got a time limit. Good luck. Here we see an example where an ice spike tried to generate, but then it was carved up by a cave, giving us what looks like frozen water drips from the precipice of the cliff. And while this specific example that we're seeing was done with a non-amplified terrain, it is worth noting that if you wanted to go find one of these for yourself, you would have better luck using amplified world generation. You're just more likely to get a lot more cliffs. Now, I agree, the dragon egg is pretty much useless, but even with that said, using one of these for the base of a lamp still seems like a waste. I mean, in Java Edition, you're only gonna get one of these, so the idea that you just be using it for something as simple as a light up base, yeah, I don't know, it rubs me the wrong way, let's put it at that. But if you're really set against using one of these in your trophy room, then at the very least, my favorite reckless way of using your dragon egg is by putting it inside of an item frame and using it as the nose on a sign. Silly, yes, but stupid, also yes.
If you're lucky, it's fully possible to find diamonds inside of your village's blacksmith chest. But what about finding a blacksmith chest next to your diamonds? Or, that is to say, a village that spawned all the way down by the deep slate level. This way, we not only have a villager market to trade and manipulate with the rares and resources right nearby for trading, providing us with an excellent alternative to the long trips back to the village. And while there might be a slight monster problem down there, if you're willing to fight, there's definitely a way to make it work for you. Have you ever seen a floating jungle temple? Yeah, me neither. And even after looking at this one, it still doesn't feel real. Now, I've seen floating pirate ships before, but this particular build looks like a much better fit for the movie Up than it does for Minecraft. And what adds to all of this is the floating piece of land that we see sitting above it, which could have possibly been what the game tried to spawn the jungle temple on. But when it couldn't, we got this odd floating thing instead. But in any case, if you're gonna try to raid it, just remember to pack away to get both up and back down. When you first find a village, the main thing we're looking for is a blacksmith. But here, you don't have to look too hard. Would you believe it, but this seed spawns a village with 3 of the things lined up like so. And outside of an iron farm, that's maybe the most ingots you'll ever get from a village.
Java Edition, we have zombie jockeys that ride on chickens. But in Bedrock, they can ride a whole bunch of other mobs. As weird as it seems, if you happen to be near a village where a baby zombie tries to spawn, it can actually spawn on top of a cat. Which is weird, but it's also incredibly cute. Up until the point that it hits you, but I guess that's most cute things, so I'll let this slide.
Here we have a woodland mansion that spawned right within a lush cave, which might sound crazy since they don't even spawn at the same elevation, but apparently this woodland mansion spawned in the side of a hill and that resulted in this lush interior design. And at this point, it doesn't even feel right to call it a woodland mansion anymore. As we know, Bedrock and Java have plenty of differences lying underneath the surface, and it turns out strongholds are no different. See, because Java strongholds operate in a sort of ring-based system, you won't see much overlap, but in Bedrock, it's all up to random chance. With a proper amount of luck, we can not only have 2 strongholds overlapping, but even have 2 portal rooms stacked like so. And the best part is that both of the portals still work, so now it's up to you to choose which one to fill out first. Some people live in igloos, but this villager decided to live in an iceberg. See, when you spawn in on this seed, you'll notice that this island village is nearby, but on the outskirts of town, one villager had their house spawn completely intact within the confines of a block of ice. And if that didn't seem bad enough already, once you step inside, you'll notice that the whole house's interior is filled with solid ice blocks, making this feel a lot more like a prank than an act of random generation.
Finding a slime chunk already seems like a tough task. And finding one in a convenient spot is even tougher. So you have to imagine the amount of luck that it would take to find 5 slime chunks in a row like this user did on Reddit. Not to mention the fact that it's underneath their home base too. And as it turns out from the math in the comments, since each chunk has a 1 out of 10 chance to be a slime chunk, then the probability of 5 chunks being slime chunks like this is a 0.001% chance of happening. Which in other words just means that you have to build a farm here. Even if it's not that much more efficient, it's definitely a lot more impressive to show off.
Now, when you've played Minecraft as long as we have, some days it starts to seem a bit bland, and even striking diamonds doesn't turn that around. But you might find yourself feeling a little bit more upbeat after you see what this amethyst geode has to offer. From this angle, the geode doesn't seem too different from what we're used to, but from up here, we can see a full smiley face, and that not only draws our eye towards it, but it also has a funny way of making us feel better too. Because come on, how could you not feel better after seeing something rare like that? And if you're needing a pick-me-up, it's worth taking a look. This villager decided to set up a house right on top of a desert pyramid, which would be weird on its own, but it's even stranger when you consider that the villager's house is an igloo, meaning we have a very strange combination between icy and hot right here on the border of the biomes. And hey, even more so, this desert pyramid seemed to have spawned in a mesa biome of all places, not even a desert biome. And while it's easy to make fun of how crazy this whole situation is, I just think it's nice to see all of these 4 nations live together in harmony. When you're spending time in a village, the last thing that you need is hostile mobs to ruin the fun. So to keep your population count on the up and up, why don't we travel to the most peaceful biome in the game? Because even though there's not an intentional mushroom fields village in the game, that didn't stop this one from generating. And honestly, I'm sure the iron golems are ready for that break. If you're looking to collect a bunch of stained terracotta without giving up on your vibrant trees, this might be the perfect intersection. As it generated, we've got this beautiful mashup of lush jungle greens with the warm hues of the mesa nearby. And speaking as someone who usually builds in one of those 2 biomes, that's a dream come true.
This is the rarest stone block in Minecraft. Or at least it used to be, since prior to version 1.8, you could only get chiseled stone bricks from jungle temples. There wasn't a stone cutter back then, so unless you were playing in creative, you probably weren't coming across these much in your world. And since jungles themselves are already rare, finding the even rare jungle temple just to get this 1 block, yeah, that seems like a lot. I mean, it's not even a block that's centered with its texture. That's insult to injury.
Waterfalls in Minecraft usually don't offer much to see, or do for that matter. But in this case, it's a lot more than just a water block on a mountain's face. Instead, we've got a proper system of flowing pools carved into the cave system, which, might I say, is a lot more interesting to look at. And it's gotta be a lot more fun as a water park than just another slide like this. So while the dripstone cavern might seem like an odd place to bust out your swimsuit, this might have to be an exception. Let's face it, pirates are cool, but in Minecraft, there's not much here to make you feel like Jack Sparrow, though this cove could be a good start. Here, we've got a lovely lush cave that opens right out to the water, all surrounded by tall mountain walls, meaning even if you're a land-loving scallywag, I think all of us can appreciate how good this looks.
With the right circumstances that you can see in this seed here, it's possible to get not just 1 pink sheep, but multiple of them that spawned no more than 20 blocks apart. And what's funny about this to me is that if you were to find this on a multiplayer server, I would just think that my friend went around dyeing the sheep pink. I mean, that seems a lot more likely than getting this kind of dumb luck, so unless they see this on single player, I think it'd be hard to believe that it's even true.
Now, golden apples are expensive, but enchanted golden apples, that's something on a whole other level. Since if you're going through the effort to find one of these inside of a rare loot chest, it's probably going to end up in yet another chest, except this time as a trophy. Since why would you eat one of these instead of the competition? Sure, it offers a lot of absorption hearts, but since it's a one and done thing, I'd much rather use regular golden apples or even just suspicious stew for regeneration. And what's funnier still is that in old versions, this enchanted golden apple actually was pretty stupid to have, making it so that you took more damage when you had an enchanted golden apple instead of less. And for the kind of cash that you were burning back then, that was pretty brutal.
Here we've got a shipwreck that didn't actually wreck. It's just a ship. Since if the game messes up where the water was supposed to be, you can actually see this rare sight of a ship spawning completely above water. And while this example that we're showing here is from Bedrock Edition, it can actually happen in Java as well. You just might need to rely on something else like a village that throws off the game's world generation. After all, Minecraft is the world generation in passes, so if something like a village were to spawn first, then the game would have thought there was supposed to be an ocean there, and when there's not, we get the shipwreck up here on the surface. Which I guess just still make it a shipwreck since it's not exactly easy to steer one of these off land, but that also looks a lot easier to do than trying to get it up from the bottom of the ocean.
Minecraft's world generation can sometimes feel repetitive, but here, that's literally true. In this seed, we see a rare occurrence of the world literally repeating itself along this line, meaning that everything, including diamonds, structures, and even biomes will stitch together along this line. And if you want to try for yourself, just type in this teleport command on the seed and you'll go to the same spot over and over again, even if it's at different coordinates. And big props to Matthew Boland for creating the literal algorithm to find this seed in the first place. That's a huge accomplishment in its own right. And it'll only take one look at the end dimension with this seed to see that the hard work finally paid off. On this seed, we don't have to go searching for a cave. And in fact, we spawn right within a tomb of stone with no way out. Make sure you say goodbye to the surface before you spawn on this one. Finding a dungeon is a lucky break, so finding 5 of them is real jackpot material. Here, we spawn in lucky enough to find multiple of the things right underneath our world spawn, which would be crazy by itself, but we've also got quite the variety, with 2 skeletons, 2 zombies, and even a spider spawner to choose from, proving that if you're willing to dig to the bottom of the world, there's plenty here to make a record-setting design. And for any technical players out there, I for one would love to see how optimized this could be as a farm. If you've got an interest in Minecraft building, then you know that it's a real asset to have all the wood types on hand. But in a regular world seed, you're likely to only have 1 or 2 saplings on hand. Though here, that's just not the case. See, in this world, not only are all the overworld wood types close by, but they're all within just 20 blocks of 0-0. And I'm lazy, but even I have to admit that's a good bargain. And I'm sure your builds will thank you for starting out this well supplied. Usually, finding a village is a tough task, but this one seems tough to reach almost by design. Here, we've got a standard tundra village that managed to spawn right in the center of an ice spikes biome, which looks pretty brutal, but at least they still have 1 tree left for farming, if you need be. So while I wouldn't recommend spawning here if you have high hopes for a farming town, it is nice to know that if you want to ditch society and let it go, there's a town ready to keep us company.
It's the rarest biome in Minecraft. Now, you might be inclined to say something like a mushroom fields biome, because obviously those are pretty hard to find, but the truth often is much stupider than it seems. And really, the rarest biome in Minecraft by far is the modified jungle edge biome. Yeah, I know, by looking at it, it doesn't seem that special, and really there's nothing visually to it that is. But this can only happen when a swamp and a jungle are touching. And because of the way that Minecraft's old terrain generation used to work, these only cover a mere 0.0001% of the world in the overworld. To put that in perspective, the mushroom fields biome covers 0.1%.
From this angle, this seems like a normal woodland mansion, but up top, it's a different story. Here, we somehow had both a jungle temple and a witch hut spawn on top of a mansion, which begs a lot of questions. For one, all of these structures are meant to spawn in different biomes, those being a swamp, a jungle, and a dark forest. Add on to that the fact that all of these structures are quite rare, and you've got a veritable treasure trove of luck. But hey, maybe this gives a reason for why those witches help out on the Illager raids. It's because they're neighbors. Reaching the end dimension is no easy task, and no small part of that is just how long it takes to find the portal room once you're in the stronghold. But here, this simplifies both steps, since if we were to stop at this unusually spawned azalea tree and dig down, we'll notice that, eventually, we'll reach the stronghold. And more importantly, the portal room is immediately over here as soon as we walk in. So if you're looking to save on ender eyes and cut down on the search time, this might be a solid way to reach the fight on your next world.
And while enchanted books and bows are rare to get from fishing, the luck there has to do more with the enchantments than the item itself. So what's really the rarest item that you can get from fishing? Because the answer's a little weird. The rarest loot possible from fishing is getting 10 ink sacs at once. And what's so funny about this to me is that if you're already fishing taken all this time to get those 10 ink sacs? You've already gotten plenty of ink sacs before then, so all it takes is having 1 or 2 ink sacs in your inventory, and then even if you get 10, you wouldn't even notice. Not to mention that ink sacs aren't that useful, and then you're just creating multiple problems for yourself. But it is rare.
Picture this. You spawn into the end dimension, and just after you defeat the Ender Dragon boss, an Elder Guardian flops toward you menacingly, which raises some questions. But that's just right. In this seed, we have an Elder Guardian that spawns directly in the center above a completed end portal. And within only a few minutes of spawning in, it falls through the portal and is stuck in the other dimension. And hats off to user Mooing Cow Milk for discovering this, since the odds of finding something this crazy turns out to be 1 in over 337 quadrillion chance. Or in other words, if you were to enter the end dimension with an Elder Guardian freaking out next to you, you might have hit the statistical jackpot. Emeralds are the quintessential Minecraft currency, and while there are plenty of ways to get your hands on the green stuff, this one might be the lamest. The truth is, folks, if you want a slow burn emerald farm, then foxes are your prime choice. Every now and then, these things will snag an emerald for you, which you can then replace to them with a food item. It's simple to set up, that's for sure, but it's also remarkably tedious. Which, call me crazy, but something tells me this isn't your next ticket to a full emerald beacon. You might need to look elsewhere for that. In this seed, we spawn inside of Atlantis, or at least part of it. Here, this seed happens to spawn us right underwater, swimming inside of an ocean ruin. And while it's weird enough to spawn crouched down under a block like this, you better figure a way out quick before you drown down there. So while this might seem like a pretty brutal spawn with no land in sight, at least you do have a buried treasure map down there in the chest to get you started. And if you ask me, that's a much better start than just punching a few trees in a plains biome. You're just gonna have to work for it. Protecting a village isn't always such an easy task, but here, the world generation seems to lend a hand. And seemingly taken after the secret panda village, these fellas seem to have set themselves up right on the mountain's edge. And while the sea nearby is a pretty sight, I'd personally hate to be this poor fella living down here in the water. And to me, it looks like they got evacuated for some reason or another. But if you're looking for an easy raid to get that Totem of Undying, then this might be a solid location. This seed is impossible to play in hardcore mode. Let me explain. See, if you're unfortunate enough to get this seed, you spawn into a dungeon with a cave spider spawner right within view. But before you try to run away, those piles of cobwebs will keep you from escaping. And just like that, you're gonna be in for a short speed run. Or you would be if you didn't try this. See, in single player, if you exit and then relog back into a world, then there is a possibility that you can receive a few moments of invulnerability, which might provide us with enough time to break your way out. Here, it seems these pillagers built their outpost all the way at the top of the mountain, or at least they tried to. But because they started up so high, they were unable to build past the build limit, creating this halfway done outpost on top of the mountain. Though even if it was fully built, that doesn't seem like a very smart structure. I mean, how are they even supposed to get down? So unless these Squidwards have an elytra on hand, I think the villagers are going to be able to sleep peacefully tonight. And arguably one of the most useful ways to use your enchanted golden apple is to make the thing banner pattern, which is expensive, but we can make it so much worse. Since to get yourself the rarest item in Minecraft, what you would have to do is get yourself a thing banner pattern, and then use that in a loom so that your green banner has a brown Mojang logo. Since to do this, you would need to have cactus green dye, which you can obviously only find in a desert, and the brown of cocoa beans, which are only found in jungle biomes. And since both of those are rare biome exclusives, that makes this banner one of the most expensive things you can get in the game. And it's a shame too, because with that color combination, it truly is ugly. Bone meal farms are almost a prerequisite for Minecraft automation. After all, who wants to wait for all their crops to grow on their own? But if you can't find a skeleton spawning nearby, then I guess fish are always a solution. Though the word solution here seems like a bit of an overstatement. You see, in Java Edition, there's only a 5% drop chance of bone meal from these things. Folks, that's not a bone meal farm. It's a fish farm with a bone meal bonus. So if you really can't find a spawner and you're still looking for bone meal some way, just use cactus or kelp instead. At least with those, you have luck on your side. This user found what might be the worst possible place for an igloo to spawn. Or the best if you don't want competition. Since what we can see here is that an igloo happened to generate, where instead of the ice lake that's surrounding the cavern, it generated right in the heart of it next to lava. And in fairness, the snow blocks aren't melting, but even if this igloo's gonna stay a while, I don't think that makes it any safer. But hey, there's a bed there if you need to respawn. I've got a feeling that you might die a few times trying to get out of this one. At some point, I think we've all wanted to live in a penthouse with a view. And while in the real world that carries a hefty price tag, it seems the pillagers might have found the emeralds to make it happen. Under the right conditions, it's not only possible to come across a woodland mansion, which, might I add, is already rare, but then also find one that's as tall as this. And folks, while this could happen on an amplified world, as you can see from this seed, we can even have one that occurs naturally, giving us quite the wild sight. Sometimes it's hard to notice how great a seed is until you step back to appreciate it. like this example. From ground level, these coordinates seem pretty standard, boring even. But from above, we'll notice we get the spitting image of a fish developed as the island. And even better, the thing somehow managed to generate right within a coral reef, making this Nemo the perfect fit. With the 1.18 update, Minecraft gave us something new to listen to the other side music disc. And while it's a solid selection, the 3.1% chance of finding it is a high barrier to entry. So luckily, this seed comes to the rescue. In this case, you can find 3 other side discs inside of the dungeon chest, which is the kind of luck that some of us can only dream of. But if you come across it, then it's definitely something worth showing off, both in a jukebox and an item frame. And if you ask me, either of those is solid decor. When you're trying to optimize your Minecraft world, then a mob spawner is a must-have. But while most of us settle to find just 1 or 2 of these for our purposes, user Neil4879 found 8 of these within a single area. And what's even better is that they're all within range for the player to trigger the spawning. So if you've got the time to clear out all the blocks and design the mechanics, this might just lead to one of the craziest mob farms in the game that you could make without a world eater.
What's the rarest enchanted piece of armor that you can find? Well, it's easy to talk about the enchanted pieces of armor that we were able to get for one update in 1.14, where those had every single protection type on top of them. There's actually one step rarer that we can go. See, in Bedrock Edition, it's possible that if you go into the secret room of a woodland mansion, you can find a leather helmet enchanted with efficiency 1, making it the rarest enchanted helmet that you can find in the game, in either version. But it's funny, it's enchanted with efficiency, and yet I'm in no rush to put it on my head. You can't even put it in an item frame to have it be impressive. It would just look like a regular enchanted leather helmet, and that's not really why we're interested in this. I guess just put it in a chest if you find it.
If you're looking for a desert temple, where's the first place you'd look? And while it might seem obvious to find one of these on the desert surface, today, that's just not the case. And as you can see from this seed, this temple actually generates entirely within a cave, which when you're branch mining for hours and find nothing, this is a welcome sight for sure. If you ever need proof of impressive dedication in the Minecraft community, then the Minecraft Seeds subreddit has it in spades. And one of my favorite examples of that is their competition to find the largest natural drop in the game. In this case, the task was to find just how many blocks you could fall in a natural world from one point to the other. And in an example like this, that could be as crazy as 239 blocks from point A to point B. So if you're looking for an impressive MLG save, you can't get much better than this. Raiding a pillager outpost can be something of a challenge, especially if you're not prepared to fight the foes. But this example's hard to raid for an entirely different reason. And really, without a Rapunzel to let down her hair, we might have a tough time climbing this extra tall outpost. But even if we can't, it's still worth seeing, even if you're just on the surface. By now, you've probably heard us talk about a naturally completed end portal. But what about a naturally completed nether portal? Well, would you believe it, but this is even rarer than the alternative, because in these seeds, 2 ruined portals had to spawn next to each other in a woodland mansion with the obsidian frame still intact. And then, after enough time, there's a chance that the walls might catch fire because of the lava nearby, and that can ignite the portal, which results in a ruined house, but a fixed nether portal. Though I should mention that since fire spreads on a random tick generator, there's no guarantee that the lava lights it this way. So if you see it happen, make sure to take a picture for us.
This death message is incredibly rare, since if you're willing to do all the work to get a shulker and a ghast into the same dimension, then if you were to die to a ghast's fireball when a shulker's bolt hits you, you'll get the death message, skip the tutorial, was fireballed by a shulker. Which to me seems like a lot of effort to go through just to die at the end, but it sure is a send-off if you're looking for a grand finale. Here we have a case where 2 shipwrecks spawned in the exact same spot, meaning that we have a shipwreck made out of different wood types. And honestly, that just seems embarrassing then. If you're gonna have 2 pirate crews working on the ship and it's still gonna sink, yeah, then you would deserve to be a shipwreck at that point. And maybe it's for the best that the buried treasure's close by too. It wasn't good in the pirates' hands, maybe it'll be better with us.
Clearly, villagers are a shady bunch. I mean, why else would half of all igloos generate with a hidden basement? But while that fact's weird in its own right, I think this basement might take the cake for peculiarities. As you can see, if we follow this ladder down to the bottom, then the secret layer opens right up into a stronghold down below, which is convenient, but it also means that the trapped zombie and regular villagers will be free roaming down below. And unfortunately for that regular villager, that's only gonna end one way. Now, if you're like me, you've probably spent a bit too much time watching these satisfying video compilations, which, if that's right up your alley, you might want to take a look at these ocean monuments. Because after a closer look on the seed itself, these temples are not only facing each other, but they wind up being exactly perfectly aligned, which is for sure worth showing off to your friends. And while they might seem normal past that, just keep in mind, a double ocean temple means double guardian trouble, so make sure to bring plenty of milk and a sword when you visit. I'll admit it, throwing eggs in Minecraft is a fun pastime. Though when I'm chucking all those eggs, I have wondered, what are the odds to get a chicken from every single egg in a single stack? Given that there is a 1 out of 8 chance for at least 1 chicken to come from a given egg, then we can take that to the 16th power and figure that there's a chance of over 1 in 281 trillion for all of those eggs to be lucky. And then folks, if we try to figure the odds of getting 64 chickens from those 16 eggs, we
get something a whole lot messier too.
Using this command, we're able to summon in a special wolf called Mars, which is a mob so rare, it only exists in the April Fool's version of the 1 block at a time update. But much like the special name tag for the rabbit variant named Toast, this gives you a different colored variant on the standard wolf skin, and hopefully this hints at getting different breeds of wolves added into the future. It wouldn't be the first time they took a feature from April Fool's and made it official. Minecraft has plenty of rare things to see, but one that was particularly tough to find was a naturally occurring snow golem. Prior to snapshot 17W47A, there was a 1 in 5 trillion chance of a pumpkin either generating in a snowy biome or an enderman placing a carved pumpkin like so to spawn a snow golem.
And with that, folks, YouTube thinks that you might like this video, so see if they're right and have a good one, alright?